The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword HD. The first thing you'll notice about Skyward Sword is the art style, specifically in the Switch re-release with the HD graphics. While I do like the plasticky sheen of Link's Awakening HD, and I appreciate the darker atmosphere of Twilight Princess, the sunshine-soaked aesthetic of Skyward Sword really takes the cake for me in terms of Zelda designs. Each character manages to look completely different from one another, and yet somehow none of them look out of place. Look at all these characters I'm showing you. These are all from the same game. Normally Link is tasked with solving all these puzzles and rescuing Zelda because the world is in danger, and I think she told him to or something. But in Skyward Sword, their relationship is a little more fleshed out than it usually is, and so it's perfectly reasonable that Link would risk life and limb to save her. Even if she does push him off a cliff every now and then. Whee! Instead of multiple shops being spread out around an entire map, everything you'll need to buy can be found in Skyloft. Either in Beetle's floating shop, where you buy rare goods, or in the bazaar, where you can buy more typical Zelda items like potions or shields. If you gather the right materials down on the surface world, you can also upgrade your items to do more damage or hold more stuff, like the bomb bag or the quiver, but I didn't really do that so often. You have to catch a lot of bugs to use as ingredients, and I'm not that good at it. But that doesn't make it any less fun to chase down every single insect you come across, and it gives a nice incentive to explore around more than you normally would to find rare bugs that improve your potions. This VeggieTales face guy will even buy them back from you if you visit him at night, and while I'm nowhere near fast enough with my net for it to be even remotely profitable, I did like his minigame over on Bug Island where you catch 8 different bugs within a time limit. Traveling to a strange island to catch a bunch of bugs with a net? This is kind of reminding me of another Nintendo game. Catching bugs, yeah, it's so much fun. I think I stepped on one. I need to upgrade all my stuff, so please don't run. Catching bugs, yeah, I'm number one. And Giver him really sucks. He does that weird thing with his tongue. He's so dumb. Catching bugs. Is a Zelda game really a Zelda game if there's no side quests? I think not. And Skyrim Sword has some of the best side quests I think in Zelda history. One of the largest structures you can find in the sky aside from Skyloft is the Lumpy Pumpkin, a cozy pumpkin-shaped restaurant that appears to sell nothing at all but pumpkin soup. I like how the game just casually shows you the piece of heart atop the chandelier, like there's barely any subtlety. Oh hey, just so you know, there's like a heart piece up there, if you want to get it, or whatever. I'm not suggesting that you smash into the wall and knock down the chandelier or anything. I'm just saying, it is up there. And there's only one way to get it. Oops! The owner of the bar then scolds you for destroying his lighting fixtures and almost killing several members of his clientele, and then he gives you a set of chores to work off your debt. The first of which is delivering some soup to a hungry customer in Skyloft. Alright, what's next? Side quest number 2. This guy needs my help sleuthing out who's been talking to his daughter all day while she's at work. Ease this old man's heart, and get rid of the lowlife who's pestering my baby girl, said the man with the humongous forehead. I'm counting on you, Yeshio. Well, yeah, I mean, that's a problem. I'm trying to find the guy who did this. Then I break in while they're at work and they come home to find me sleeping in their house. And no one suspects a thing. You can either break up with her and get the 5 gratitude crystals from her father, or don't and get the crystals from her. Nothing really changes either way. Each side quest you finish will net you 5 crystals, which can be traded with this demon guy for useful items. Well, useful is kind of an overstatement. It's mostly just rupees and larger wallets. But it is at least pretty cool to get an extra reward for finishing side quests. There's a total of 45 crystals to be gathered by helping the good people of Skyloft, 20 more for helping out the rest of them, and an extra 15 scattered around the world, although only visible at night for some unexplained reason. Once you've given all 80 crystals to Once you've given all 80 crystals to Beatriox? Once you've given all 80 crystals to this guy, he'll finally turn back from his demon form into his human form. Well, that's a little bit better, I guess. But the best side quest IMO is the Kaldwin's Letter quest. Kaldwin up to this point has been a huge jerk with a huge head. So when he hands me a love letter and asks me to give it to the girl of his dreams, I accidentally thought he said, "Please flush this down the toilet for the sketchy ghost who hangs out in the sewer every night." I guess Kaldwin is some sort of Hylian Shakespeare or something, because the ghost actually read the letter he wrote and now has fallen madly in love with him. If you enter into Groos's room at nighttime and spy on Kaldwin sleeping, you'll somehow not be the creepiest person in the room, as the ghost hand is now lovingly stroking his head while he calls out for help in his sleep. I thought about maybe telling someone so they can get an exorcist in here, but I already got the crystals, so it's really not my problem anymore. Since we're talking about the HD version specifically, I feel like I wouldn't be doing justice if I left out some of the improvements it made over the original game. The obvious one being the new button controls. The motion controls on the original Wii version was what can be known as an unearthly atrocity and a disgrace to humankind. Okay, I'm exaggerating a lot. It wasn't horrendous all the time. Aside from these impossible harp sections and a few times when it was pointlessly slapped in there for no real reason, the Wii Motion Plus remote worked pretty well for me. And it is pretty cool to be able to move Link's sword in real time. The Switch remake not only fixed the motion controls for the most part, but it also added button-only controls, which was actually my preferred way to play. Unless I'm using the whip, that is. Wata! Wata! Can we also just take a second and appreciate all the cool items here? Things like the Gust Bellows and the Beetle are so fun, they've been added to Smash Bros, where they are significantly less fun. Other things like the bow or the net are also great to use, but I've already talked about that. The hookshot is fun to get around with too, mostly because you're actually given 2 this time for you to dual wield. But you know what the best item is? The whip. Wacha! Wacha! It can reach through iron bars and pull switches, you can swing from it like Indiana Jones, and I really wish the stealing of keys from bokoblins was implemented more than just the one time, because it's super cool. That's probably like 50% of the reason why I really like the Ancient Cistern so much as a dungeon, because it's where you get to use the whip and get to be really awesome. The other 45% is the final boss Koloktos, where you pick up his sword, which is the size of your entire body somehow, and then cut off his legs and bludgeon him to death with it. And then the other, like, 5% is the zombies. The other dungeon that really stood out to me was the Sand Ship, featuring my other favorite item, the bow. First things first, set sail on the high seas with a robot and wage naval warfare on an invisible pirate ship. I feel like I could just stop right there and you would already understand why this is the coolest one. But we can't set out just yet because this entire ocean has dried up hundreds of years ago and is now a giant desert. So we'll need to activate a time shift stone to time bubble the immediate land around us to the state it was in during ancient times. Then once we've boarded the ship, we'll need to keep using the giant time shift stone at the top of the mast to send the dungeon back or forward through time. There's only a handful of places from which you can reach the stone though, and certain puzzles that are only present in the past or future, which is what presents the main challenge of the dungeon. Once you unlock the final door, the ship starts to capsize from a kraken attack and you're sent scrambling up to the poop deck to cut off all his tentacles. Then you shoot him in the eyes and cut his face off. Bam! Heart piece. Bam! Your sword is better. Bam! I have a whip! Wacha! Wacha! I've always held a little bit of resentment towards the HD release ever since I bought a shiny new Wii Motion Plus controller and a pre-owned copy of the original game from Amazon about a month before Nintendo announced a Switch remake. There's also a few issues from the original that were completely overlooked in the remake. The imprisoned boss fight, which absolutely no one wanted, somehow wormed its way into 3 separate sections of the Wii release, and a decade later this Among Us looking abomination somehow made it into the Switch version as well. Each iteration of the fight gets more doofy looking and less fun as it goes on, so if you're thinking of doing the Thunder Dragon's Boss Rush challenge to unlock the Hylian Shield, let me recommend you just walk away with half your sanity still intact. You're gonna have to fight the Imprisoned. A lot. But for all its flaws, I think Skyward Sword is my favorite Zelda game. Yes, I know it's a hot, lukewarm take, but for every one thing that bugs me, there's 3 things I really like, and I think it deviates from the Zelda format in all the best ways while still keeping everything great about the series intact. Heck, this video was originally supposed to be about the top 10 Zelda games, but I just had too much to say about this one that I ended up ditching the other 9. I also just love the concept of the whole human civilization being this one floating island in the sky, and to save Zelda, you need to dive off the edge of the world and plunge down to the undiscovered surface below. Flying around on a giant bird and discovering all sorts of side quests and pumpkins and clowns is awesome! And returning to the same 3 areas all the time isn't that frustrating because you unlock new parts of the map every time you do. Not to mention it's the first game in the Zelda timeline, setting off the chain reaction of every other game with every new incarnation of the Blood of the Goddess, the Spirit of the Hero, and the Demon of Evil. I didn't even get to talk about some of the more unique parts of the game, like getting thrown in prison by the Bokoblins and sneaking around to recover all of your items one by one. Or the Tad Tones, which were horrendous in the original, but pretty refreshing in the remake. The Kikwis! Those dudes are awesome! Groose! I love that guy! I'm not gonna sit here and tell you about every great thing in Skyward Sword, just go play it for yourself. Now if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna go sit in the corner and wait for a Wind Waker switch port. Have a nice day.